Hi, I'm Tyler, and welcome to another episode of my Christian Music Week reviews. Each week I take 5 releases, LCPs or singles, and after I've listened to them all week, I come back here and I review them. I share what I think about them. So without further ado, let's get to this week's first release, Need to Breathe's new album, Live from the Woods, Volume 2. Need to Breathe's new album, Live from the Woods, Volume 2. Let's dive into it. So, pretty good album here, pretty good concert, which is impressive coming from me, considering I'm not usually that big of a Need to Breathe fan, but this album was really good. So, stylistically here, let's dive into it. Stylistically here, we have Southern Rock and Alternative as the top two styles, but also, too, we have some folk influence, I would say, and then pop influence as it fits into those other three stylistic influences. Instrumentally here, bass guitar, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, drum, piano, and some organ and violin too. And as for the lyrics here, touches on some themes here for sure. Talks about chasing down your dreams, talks about doing it with those that you love, particularly his wife he mentions here on this album, but also too, Brother talks about writing this with his brother, and some songs talk about letting go of control and resting in God's arms, finding it freedom to be a child again. And also talks about being in need of the revival that Jesus gives, no matter what voices may try to push you away from that, saying, oh, you can't have that. While in reality, Jesus does offer that to us, no matter what the enemy may try to say to us. And also, it talks about being crazy in love with the woman that you're in love with. Up next, Zach. So basically, put kind of some faith themes and then some more love song type themes. Up next, Zach Williams' new single, "Turn It Over." Zach Williams' new single, "Turn It Over." Let's talk about it here. So before I dive into it, let me just say that this is going to be on the deluxe edition of his latest album, Rescue Story. You can check out my review of that album on this channel. It was on here back in October of 2019. And also, it's going to include his recently released single, Stand My Ground, which I just reviewed about a month ago here. So you can check out my review to that on his channel as well. And now, let's dive into this new single. So stylistically, turn it over. So stylistically here, definitely a Southern Rock worship track, I would say. Southern Rock means worship, influence worship track here. Instrumentally here, acoustic guitar, bass guitar, electric guitar, piano, and drum. And as for the lyrics here, talks about how he's spent his life fighting God. Now he surrenders and lets go of his sinful past and turns his life over to his Savior's grace. So, definitely a testimony type track here. Up next, Tauren Wells' live album, Citizen of Heaven, Live. Tauren Wells' new live album, Citizen of Heaven, Live. Let's talk about here. So, pretty good live concert album, I would say. Definitely seemed like he put on a good concert there. Stylistically here, well, of course, with it being Tauren Wells, the pop element, right? But also, too, some worship tracks do make it into the cut here. And also, some degree of R&B and a smidgen of gospel influence on a few at a few points. Smidgens of hints of gospel influences at a few points. Instrumentally, here we have bass guitar, electric guitar, drum, bass, piano, synth. And as for how these live versions, compared to the original ones, they sound pretty much the same, except for the fact that the electric guitar, gives it a little bit more of a dramatic flair, I would say, live. Gives these versions a little bit more dramatic flair. And as for the lyrics here, touches on quite a few themes here, so let's go through the themes here. Talks about how God in his love never lets go of him, even in the unknown. Also talks about how Tauren also talks about how he God for believes on God for the miracles that he can do and does. Also talks about how as undeserving as fully as God knows him and as undeserving as Tauren is. And by the way, by extension, all of us are of God's love. God still loves him. And also talks about too how Tauren also talks about how he does not belong to this temporal earthly kingdom, but to an eternal kingdom in heaven. And also talks about how God is above even the valleys of life. So definitely covers a lot of ground here lyrically during this concert. Up next, Tasha Layton's new single, Look What You've Done. Tasha Layton's new single, Look What You've Done. Let's talk about it. So, stylistically here, synth, piano, bass, drum, and violin. And as for the lyrics here, love the lyrics to this track. So, the title, Look What You've Done, kind of has a twofold aspect to it. So, the song starts off by talking about how the devil tried to bond her to shame, like, oh, look what you've done. But then we switch to the the more positive aspect of look what God has done, how he has set her free from those lies and has made her new. Up next, our last release for today, Timmons' new album, Here. Timmons' new album, Here. Let's talk about it. So, sound-wise here, pretty good album. This is a pretty good album. Really liked it. Instrumentally here, we have electric guitar, acoustic guitar, drum, piano, and then violin at a few points. And as for the lyrics here, great lyrics. Talks about no matter the season, no matter what darkness may come at him, he talks about here fixing his eyes on God's promises and limitless goodness and rejoicing in that. Well, that's it for this week. Come back next week for 5 more releases. If you like what you saw in this video, please subscribe. Also, if you have any thoughts on today's releases or what I may have said about them, let me know that in the comments below. Also, in the comments, you can let me know if there's any awesome releases that came out today that you want to see in next week's video. Also, check out my playlist section for the My Music Muffin Streams playlist, which is available here on YouTube and on Spotify. And this month have artists like Tadashi, Aaron Shoes, Trip Lee, and others that I play during the month of March. So you can enjoy that if you need some jams to listen to this weekend and want to hear what's in my headphones when I'm not working on these videos. Well, I'll go now. See you next week. Bye!